Hi everyone, I am Elena Rodriguez-Falcon and I look like an LGBT engineer. You might have heard about me. I am a mechanical engineer, a professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering at the University of Sheffield. And not so long ago I wrote a blog on the issues that, the perceived issues that LGBT members of the community face in engineering, or I think they face in engineering. All came about after I had a conversation with some colleagues who pondered, I suppose, whether there were such issues and whether we really needed to do something or not. So I went away and I did a little bit of research and found out that the Royal Academy of Engineering and many other organizations had already done some research and had found that here, particularly in the UK, and I think it's the same around the world, the proportion of engineers in the working environment that disclose being part of the LGBT community is 0.5%. Now, that is compared to a 20% average in the UK. So the numbers are staggering. I don't think there is a particularly confirmed or well-researched answer as to why this is the issue. However, having been part of a campaign, I suppose, and activity to increase the number of women in engineering, I started to wonder why we did one and not the other, and whether we had to think about it or whether there was no issue to think about. So I posed a couple of questions in my blog that then ended up in The Guardian as to whether one of the reasons is that in engineering, considering that we have such a high proportion of male engineers, there is an issue of the LGBT community feeling uncomfortable about being out, and particularly gay men, given that there is a lot of research that suggests that there is a much stronger fear of homophobia amongst gay men than amongst gay women. And then the other argument is, if the perception of engineering is that is the case, are we precluding, or are we unintentionally preventing potential engineers, potential LGBT engineers to come into the discipline? The answer is I don't know. I don't think we know. And even though this blog and the article in The Guardian attracted a lot of attention around the world, it went. The response that I received was overwhelming. There are hundreds of organizations I didn't know about. I just wrote the article in response to these questions that I had been posed. I just realized that there are hundreds of organizations doing this work, trying to change this situation in their own particular environment, whether it's in academia, whether it's in the army, whether it's at the workplace, but particularly surrounding issues of participation of LGBT communities in engineering. And it appears to me that a lot of research has been done. There is a lot of activity taking place to raise awareness and to change this issue or this problem that we appear to have. Do we have a problem? I don't know. I had a few responses from my students in my own organization in the university. A few students, a couple of members of staff came forward, and they didn't seem to have a problem. They were particularly open about being gay, so am I. So if we don't have a problem, should we worry or should we not? And I suppose that the question to the answer to that question is not whether we should worry or not that we are comfortable. Is still the fact that we don't know whether there is a 20% of our community in engineering who are not out because of a particular reason, whether it's out of choice or because of fears. We can't tell. And if that's not the case, if we are preventing the LGBT community to taking part into engineering as a discipline because of the perceptions, then there is another problem we need to address. Someone asked me if what did I think about social media and activism. I must admit that I don't think I've ever thought of myself as an activist. Possibly I was being slightly naive. Clearly what I've been doing is activism for gender and for sexuality. I think there are advantages and disadvantages of any type of activism. I suppose on the one hand, standing up and saying that something needs to change, even if you stand up alone, is important. It's just the right thing to do. However, I think activism, individual activism, without a plan and without unity from all the others around the world who are also standing up and saying something is wrong, is a waste of time. So my message is, yes, okay, let's say this is wrong if we know that there is something wrong. Let's say that we need to do something about it, but let's decide what that is and unite forces. Because I think we all know that a revolution only works when we all have a common goal in mind, when we all believe truly about what we want to achieve, and when we have specific milestones and specific ways forwards of making a change. A change won't happen just because we talk about it. A change will happen when we do something about it. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope this is of help. Bye.